Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. Nazim again with the 7th lecture. Today my topic is again listening. In my last lecture I did start this topic and I gave you the introduction of listening, and remember we did an exercise as well. Surely by now you must have assessed where do you stand. At the same time, I did in my last lecture tell you the importance of listening. Keep in mind that at any stage in your life you would be needing to improving upon your skills, because listening will determine the extent of progress you would make in your personal and professional life, in your personal and professional career. Listening is such an important activity that imagine a child at a very early age, when a child is in the womb of a mother, starts listening and keeps on listening till the time the body is lowered in the grave. हम सारी उम्र सुनते रहते हैं. कैसा सुनते हैं? Are we effective listeners or we are not? That's a separate issue. But as I said to you in the last lecture, that we almost consume 45% of our waking time in listening activity. And listening could be for social activities, interacting, communicating with friends, communicating with professionals, communicating with our near dear ones. Communication is an art which involves listening at the same time. But the unfortunate element in listening is that it's a very short-term activity. As I said to you, that almost 50% of your listening is lost the moment you stop listening. And after about 8 hours, you only retain 35% of what you have listened. So basically, we are poor listeners. You surely must have assessed yourself whether you are an active listener or not. And whatever be the result, keep in mind that you have to improve upon whatever your present status is. I will be today particularly talking to you about the various effective measures that you have to adopt in order to improve upon your communication skills, which would involve listening in particular. Let me tell you again that this activity you would be constantly improving upon at every stage of your professional life. So never be oblivious of the fact that you have mastered the art. You will keep on. So let us today see to it that listening involves more than merely recognizing the sound. Listening is not only sound, it is understanding the meaning. And when I said understanding the meaning, remember my statement when I talked about the communication process. I said meanings are in people and meanings are not in words. So when such is the situation, then we have to keep in mind that words are only a part of the communication, and what you hear, what you listen is only a part of the process. Much more rests on how the person expresses those words, the facial expression, the gestures, the body movement. All these would help you understand the listening ability. So in order to master this, you have to know and understand the other aspects of communication, to which I will come in my later lectures, where I'll talk to you about the non-verbal part. But for the time being, just keep in mind that in order to well understand the listening process, you must remember that there are two aspects. There are two important things. One is the explicit data, which is involved in verbal communication, and second is the implicit data. Now, what are the explicit and the implicit? I'm going to delve onto this for a little more time before I tell you how to be an effective listener. When I say that you have to be very explicit in listening, that is, the communication, the verbal part is in the words. So words give you the explicit aspect of the communication, understanding. But there are few things which remain unsaid. People tend not to explain, not to express by words only. They sometimes imply messages. They send messages which are hidden. So as a good listener, you have to as well understand, you have to accept that the explicit part and the implicit, those things which are implied as well need to be understood. So as a good manager, as a good supervisor, you must see that you could understand those things, you could listen to the messages which are unsaid, which are not expressed openly. Now this is a very tricky thing, and you over a period of time through experience would get to know how to understand the messages which are not verbally pronounced, which are not verbally communicated. Here I remember a very good story told to me by one of my friends. He confided in me because it was a very personal thing, but since we were discussing certain family issues, he said to me that, Nazim, my wife has a very strange nature, and at times when she buys new clothes, she wears them and then she comes and walks in front of me. पहन के वो आ जाती है और आगे पीछे मेरे फिरने लग जाती। कहते मैं समझ जाता हूं कि वो कहती क्या है. Then she ultimately resorts to asking, how is my dress? He understands what she means, but jokingly he replies, the dress is good. It's a nice fabric. She goes quiet and after some time again asks, you didn't tell me something more about the dress. I said it's well stitched. Bas itna hi. Then he says, it looks good on you. And she's very happy. Thank you. As a matter of fact, when she asked the question, how is the dress? The answer was not that the dress is nice. This is the explicit expression that it's nice. But something more was expected. She did not ask verbally. She implied. She wanted to know. She wanted to get appreciation that it looked good on her. So exactly when you are listening, keep in mind that people at times, they don't ask questions which could be easily answered in words, but they are hidden meanings. And the art of listening is that you should understand those hidden meanings and could continue on the conversation and as well receive the message. Keeping this in mind, that in hearing, explicit part is one component. Implicit, that which is implied, should as well be understood. Now, let's see how you can be an effective listener. First thing is that you must improve your listening skills. For improving listening skills, maintain a positive attitude. Pay full attention to the speaker. When you are interacting with people, when you are having a dialogue, when you want to communicate, discuss something, the first, most very important thing is that you must enter yourself into the desired mood. You should be in a listening mood. You in an effective talking mood, in a mood where you really want to learn. But for that, you have to be in a positive state. What do I mean by a positive state? Positive state means that you must ask yourself a question that what am I going to learn from this interaction? What am I going to learn new from this discourse which I am listening? If you are in for new experiences, if you are in for new knowledge, then you will be on a receiving end, and then you will put yourself into the frame of mind of the speaker. Because when you are in a positive mood, when you give full attention to the speaker, then you try to understand what the speaker is saying. And again, putting yourself into positive mood means that you give full attention, and even you give benefit of doubt to the speaker when he or she may say something you might not agree to. So, starting premise for an effective listener is that no matter who the speaker is, you have to put yourself in the right frame of mind, that you are there to receive knowledge, to extend your experiences through somebody's knowledge. Like you see, life is very short. How can I know more about other things? By interacting, by sharing with people. And that is only learning, learning, and learning. And that can only be done if I am receptive, I am open to new views, new ideas. Second thing, after you are in a positive mood, then keep an open mind. Welcome new viewpoints rather than resisting them. When I say keep an open mind, I mean don't be judgmental. Open mind is a mind which is ready to listen any point of view, anybody's experience, anybody's expressions which may or may not be liked by me. When you become judgmental, then you start evaluating, then you start weighing. So, you do not understand a thing when you become judgmental. The foremost thing, as I said earlier, that in a right frame of mind, you must not be judgmental. And by not being judgmental, you will try to put yourself into the speaker's shoes and try to understand what he or she is saying. Now, not being judgmental is a good thing and a bad thing too. Because sometimes you are in a critical mood and sometimes you are in empathic state. Remember I said to you that at times you are in a state that you want to be in the same state what the other person is, because the other person wants to share his or her feelings. Then there you do not evaluate, you do not criticize. That is another state. But even for both the states, whether you are in an emotional state with that person or you are in a critical state, the first thing is that you must understand what the person is saying. And that you can only understand if you do not become judgmental. You become judgmental when you go with your own frame of mind and try to evaluate. And being not judgmental would as well require that you put your biases aside. We tend to hear what we want to hear. That means we become biased. If I know that I am biased, then I will understand that what the other person is saying conflicts with my faith or not. It is difficult, I said, that be open, because we internally would not like to listen to somebody whose faith clashes with my faith. I would not like somebody to criticize somebody whom I love a lot. I would not like to change my opinion about somebody whom I admire a lot. I would not like anybody to challenge my values. But at the same time, if you are an educated person, if you are an literate person, then it is good for you that you don't become biased, you don't become judgmental, and interact and listen to others' point of view, and then see, maybe your parameters might be wrong. You might have wrong values. So it is good to assess and reassess your own values, your own beliefs, by being impartial and just listening to the other person, and then reevaluate your own beliefs and values. So it is important at times, as I said, positive frame of mind and be open and listen to different viewpoints. And at the same time, listening to different viewpoints gives you a broader perspective of what the people around are feeling. I also believe that you live in a world where you have to interact with people of different faiths, and you have to tolerate there. So you can only tolerate people if you have got an open mind and you give other people a chance to live with their beliefs and with their values like I would like to live. So it's important that this aspect should be as well inculcated into your own being, and that's where you become an effective and active listener. Listen for supportive ideas without personal prejudice or bias. Now, in my last point, I said be open. Of course, I said there that don't be biased. But here when I say to you that listen for supportive ideas, supposing I am a politician and I belong to a special party. I have my alignments and I have got my beliefs. I have my attachment to a certain group, a family, whatever it is. I will not appreciate, I tend to rather, not appreciate listening to others' point of view. And therefore, I'll be critical. I'll put blinkers on my thoughts and completely shun any new idea. So that is where the whole things go wrong. Listen for supportive ideas. Your opponents, your enemies might as well say something good. So that is the beauty of the interaction, living together, and differences, living with differences, that you let the other person appreciate your points of views and at the same time emphasize upon what they are pursuing. This can only happen if you listen to others' point of view, and if they come up with supportive ideas, then you keep your personal biases and prejudices aside. If you do not do that, then you will be completely shutting yourself into your own clan, into your own community, into your own nationality, your own group, because then you will not intermingle with people, because you will not accept new ideas. That is why it is good that appreciate the supportive ideas when people come up with different beliefs and different values. Next point, listen for speakers' main ideas and concentrate on their meaning. Take advantage of your brain power. At times, it happens that you are sitting in a conference. You are listening to a very good speech, and you like to take down notes. It is always good to take down notes if you are sitting in a conference, in a meeting, because never ever trust your memory. Don't think if few good statistical data is being provided by the speaker, you can retain them. I told you earlier that we tend to forget things very quickly. 50% is lost very, very quickly. So firstly, don't trust your memory. Try to note down the things which you want to retain. So, supportive ideas must be jotted down. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? You use your brain power. The speaker normally speaks 150 to 200 words per minute. Or sometimes, you see, to be very precise, it is 150, but some speak very fast, so it could be 150 to 200 words per minute. But our thinking speed, our understanding speed, varies between 400 to 500. That is, look at the time span, the time difference, the difference in space. You can utilize this difference of thinking speed and the hearing speed by making judgment, evaluating. How do you do that? First, when the speaker is speaking, then using your brain power, what you can do is, because you have heard it quicker than your mind is working, what you can do is, you can quickly assimilate the main points. First, that you quickly pick up the gist, the main points, the salient features of what the speaker is saying. First thing. And if you want to write down, write them down. But at the same time, when you are listening, then you can also think what the speaker is going to speak next, because you have got sufficient time to think. And if the speaker speaks the same thing, then you are in alignment with the speaker, right? So you utilize that space. Or at the same time, what you can do is, you can evaluate, you can weigh what the speaker has said. And that you can compare with the statistical data or the past experience or reference you have got about the thing. So the third element is that you can weigh, judge, or evaluate. The fourth aspect is that you can listen between the lines. You have got time to think. And then you start using that space to evaluate whether what is said, has the speaker retained something which he has not said. What I said is implied, and what he explicitly defined. The speaker might not like to say few things, but using that space, you will try to find out the hidden messages. As I said to you earlier, हम जिंदगी में सब कुछ ही एक्सप्रेस नहीं करते, कुछ बातें अनकही भी छोड़ जाते हैं. This, by using your thinking speed, you can find out that what has not been said. So you can utilize this brain power by finding out that what the speaker has not said. Also, you can use this space to judge the speaker's non-verbal gestures. आप speaker को उसके non-verbal expressions, उसके gestures, उसकी voice, उसकी body language को understand कर सकते हैं, and then you can compare with the words he or she is uttering. Also, what you can do is that you can use this time daydreaming, or what you can do is that you can evaluate. Daydreaming का मतलब ये है कि आप wander करेंगे, इधर उधर देखेंगे, वो passive listener बन जाएंगे. So, whichever way, using it effectively or just being in a passive state. Next, do not jump to conclusions. Listen for facts before forming your opinion. We all have a tendency that we quickly give our judgment. हम एकदम कह देते हैं, अभी उसने बात शुरू ही की, समझ आ गया आप क्या कहना चाहते हो. And we presume that we have understood. This is a fallacy. This is a very wrong tendency. You as a manager or supervisor, if you indulge in such a habit, you will have a very bad relationship with your people. No matter what happens, whether you have really understood the speaker or not, whether you have prejudged what the speaker is going to say, please be patient and just keep your cool. Let the other person come out with what he or she wants to say. Doing this, what you will do is that you will enter into the emotional part of the person, because you give the other person to express his or her feelings, and then you make your own judgment, you evaluate. So it is always good that give the other person enough time and don't immediately jump on conclusions. Jumping on conclusions annoys the person. It breaks the continuity, the harmony which you establish between yourself and the speaker. So just keep cool and listen patiently. Now, For this, what you can do is, you can keep an eye contact with the person, and so that even if you may have prejudged the things, you do not lose a contact and let the person realize that you are actively listening. Ask questions. Show your interest and attention. Keep them pertinent to the speaker's frame, not yours. Asking questions is important. If you do not ask questions, you may have the tendency to interpreting the message wrong. As I said earlier, that we have a tendency to jump to conclusions. We prejudge. We want to listen what we want to listen. So, our speaker may have given something through nonverbal expressions, a different message. We may have failed to interpret it. And how can we be sure that we have got the information right? The best way is sum it up and say, if I understand you better, this is what you mean saying. Uska ek fayda hai. Because when you paraphrase the thing, which I'm going to tell you again, if you ask questions, then what you do is that you let the speaker know that you have understood the message better. You enter into the feelings of the speaker. There are two aspects, you see, when you ask questions. One is you check the perception of the message, the perception of the content. वो कंटेंट क्या था और आपने उसको कैसा परसीव किया. और दूसरा, you can check the perception of the speaker's feelings. Maybe जो कंटेंट है उसको आपने और तरीके से इंटरप्रेट किया. लेकिन when you ask questions, then what happens is that you tell the speaker that this is how I have perceived your feelings. और उससे at times speaker वो ज़्यादा objective हो जाता है, and the speaker at the same time starts understanding the factual aspects of the statement. At times he or she may have said the thing in a different perspective, then can make reassessments and adjustments. Also, when you ask questions, then you put yourself into the frame of mind of the speaker. आप अपने ज़ात में से निकलकर आप उसकी ज़ात में आ जाते हैं, because you frame your questions by aligning yourself what the speaker has said. If I have understood this correctly, this is what you meant, yes or no, then you will rightly check whether you have understood the message or not. As I said to you earlier, that when you ask questions, you can lead to paraphrasing the message, what you are listening. Paraphrasing is that after you have listened to the presentation, you can sum it up and say that this is what you meant by saying. It is slightly what I said, asking questions, but asking questions may be only for clarifying, but paraphrasing is the totality of what you have understood from the message. And as I said earlier, paraphrase करने से उस speaker का जो main message है, वो आप उसको भी objectively force करते हैं कि वो देखे कि मैंने तुम्हारे message को इस तरह से receive किया, क्या this is what actually you meant. Paraphrasing means if the speaker realizes that I have verbalized it not correctly, then he or she will change it. वो understand करेगा कि उसकी objectivity क्या थी. So paraphrase करने से आप speaker को भी reassessment का मौका देते हैं. So it is always good, it's very much appreciated in negotiation. It's helpful in having a dialogue with people that when you paraphrase, you remove the element of any doubt. Like supposing I having a dialogue with my boss. I'm not happy with my salary. Ultimately, he says, okay, I'm going to give you a raise, and you'll get a raise within a month or two. Before I leave, I'll say, if I understood you correctly, you said that you are going to give me a raise within a month or two? If he says yes, be sure, then he cannot, after 1 month, say, I didn't say that. Because you have, by repeating it, you have ensured that this is what he has said. Provide feedback to encourage the person to continue talking. Feedback is very important. As I said in the communication channel earlier, that the communication cycle is not complete if the feedback doesn't come. Likewise, when you are listening to a speaker, it is good to give a feedback to the speaker. Feedback is like you're nodding, because the speaker would be establishing an eye contact with you. And you say, oh yes, I agree. Small, these feedbacks encourage. And remember, you have to be honest in your feedback. Because keep in mind that, as I said earlier, that you have come to get information, to expand your horizon, your knowledge. So you want the speaker to continue on with the communication process. So you encourage the speaker to keep on speaking and telling the speaker that you are engaged in this process by only giving up feedback. Of course, this can be a positive feedback or negative feedback. But it is always good, it is encouraged for an effective speaker to let the speaker speak by giving a positive feedback. Very important thing that during communication we must remove distractions. Now, distractions can be of various types. It can be the external distraction, or it can be a distraction from the sender's side. Remember, I talked to you about a conversation taking place in a restaurant. Remember, I mentioned to you that you can filter the sounds coming to you. In case where there is any such distraction around you, you will not be able to indulge in a healthy communication, healthy exchange, if your mind keeps on diverting to the external distraction. So you have to either physically remove yourself from there, or to apply filters, remove distraction. Applying filters means that, like, if the speaker is speaking with certain handicaps, if he's slightly stammering, or something wrong in his mannerism, something wrong in his speech, his grammar is not good, he doesn't have a full command of the language, it will cause distraction. But if you are a good listener, then you overlook all these differences, because what you are interested in is trying to know what the speaker is saying. Likewise, if you are talking to a person who doesn't know your language, but he has got a command on this subject, on the knowledge which he's sharing with you, then you're more interested in what he's saying. Then there, it is important for you to overlook the style. It is difficult. You can't completely remove yourself. You can't isolate yourself from the style. But somehow, if you could, it will be very beneficial to you that cut yourself off from that distraction and focus on the ideas, what the person is sharing. That is, removing distraction will help you understanding the message and establishing that link with the person which you want for your good communication, for your effective listening. Very important thing, increase your vocabulary. Now, words are important. Words in the sense that words, what words the other people are using. If you're not familiar with the words, if you're not familiar with the jargon, you will not be able to understand. You will not be able to communicate. So, listen to the vocabulary the other person is using and add to your word bar. This will facilitate you understanding the word in the right perspective. Also, it is important that when you use words, then you must know the cultural impact. Here I remember that once I was talking to one of my American friends, and I used a terminology which was all Greek to him. Means he did not understand my vocabulary, because I said to him, talking about something, I said, I have burnt my boats. He said, what? I said, I have burnt my boats. He said, I don't understand. What do you mean burning my boats? I said, I have left my things behind and there's no point in going back. I said, oh, I understand. What you mean is you have burnt your bridges. So imagine in our culture, in our speaking style, we use the word burning the boats. In American culture, this is not used. So that is where the vocabulary differed. And we could not understand each other. So it is important that when you are communicating, you understand the cultural differences as well, where the words are used differently. The vocabulary is different. Words may be used for different feelings. Words themselves might be different. So, when I say increase your vocabulary, understand which word is used, where and how. That is very important. Another thing for effective listening is that you must listen with the heart as well as with the head. Here I mean that you must remove your intellectual distraction and also your psychological distraction. Listening with heart and listening with head means same what I said initially, in a way open mind, that you psychologically you don't go there with pre-set notions. You don't go with some intellectual differences that, oh, this speaker is not going to be a good speaker. And then you will tend to not to listen in the same frame of mind the speaker is in. So if you try to create that barrier of intellectual superiority, then you will not be on the receiving end. Likewise, psychological distraction or differences will lead you to create biases and prejudices. So it's important that you stay without this element while you are listening or communicating. Let me now give you an example which will illustrate all what I have said so far. Supposing you as a student are given a certain grade, say C grade. How would you interact with will be exemplified from the feelings which I'm going to narrate to you about a student who got a C grade. He was disappointed and he's talking now with his friends. He said, look here, I got a C grade. And I got this lousy grade in spite of the fact that I worked very hard on the project. The listener one response. So what? I got C grade too. This is the response of one person. Listener 2. Well, doesn't matter. This is your last semester. Grade doesn't matter. Grades don't matter. So, C grade, fine. The third listener. Thank God you got C grade. Aisha and Amna, they failed. Jibreel and Faisal, they got D grades. At least be happy that you got C grade. 3 different listeners reacting differently. The fourth listener says, well, I saw you working for the last 3 weeks on this project. You must be dejected. You are angry. You are hurt. I understand. The fourth speaker. Now all these, I'm sorry, the fourth listener. All these listeners, they are trying to pacify the feelings of the speaker. They are trying to tell the speaker, just calm down, doesn't matter. But all are approaching differently and the results are different. The first two especially listeners, when they say, I got C, well, this is your last semester, is an inappropriate response. Because the speakers are trying, the listeners are trying to tell to the speaker that be realistic, be logical. You are lucky that the rest of the class failed and you got, at least you passed with C grade. And this was what the third listener said too. So all these 3 listeners, although are trying to pacify, but somehow they are not establishing the contact and they are not maintaining the communication which otherwise they could have by putting it differently. The fourth one has entered into the arena, into the frame of mind where he is completely in alignment with the speaker and appreciates his feelings for being dejected, for being hurt. This is where the fourth speaking is acting differently. He is an active listener because he appreciates the feelings. He says that, look here, you worked hard and I appreciate your feelings. So the speaker understands the feeling and can talk to, communicate with the fourth listener, because that is the way you have to appreciate the feelings of the speaker. It is important for a manager, for a supervisor, that when he or she interacts with people who are dejected, who are disheartened, who are angry, who are hurt, that don't justify, don't legitimize, don't say that it's logical. Like in our lives too, आपके पास अगर कोई आए और कोई शिकायत करे या आपसे कन्फाइड करे कि मेरे साथ ये हुआ, बहुत बुरा हुआ, तो आपके कोई बात नहीं, सबके साथ ऐसा होता है. That is not the response. You have to appreciate the feelings and say, well, yes, I can feel the hurt. That's what makes the difference of an active listener. Remember, you see, when we are listening, we are operating on different levels. At one level, we are just trying to interpret the message as it is. That is, as the words communicate. On the other level, we are operating when we understand the hidden messages, the unsaid message, unheard message. This is very important for a good manager, that he or she must try to find out what the speaker is saying. Like I tell you, we often at times complain to our parents, and we say to them that they are being unfair, they are not nice with us. Does it really mean that our parents are cruel? No. It's only that we are expecting more care, more love, more affection, more attention. Unfair doesn't mean they are cruel. Likewise, when parents complain to the children and tell them, oh, we worked very hard, the only message they are communicating, they are passing on to the children is that at least acknowledge our effort, appreciate us. So this is at second level, another level that they are communicating. And while we listen, we must listen to this message, which is other than the words. So what I mean saying here is that whenever you are in an active state of listening, then you must go beyond the words and try to understand the hidden, unsaid message as well. Let's talk about the benefits of effective listening. So far, you have established, you have found out how you can develop the effective listening attitude. Now, let's see what benefits would you derive by being an effective listener. Effective listener increases your ability to help others because you will hear, empathize, and understand. Imagine your child coming to you and complaining, Father, I'm having problem in the school. Now you can react to that by saying to the child, you are always with complaints. I think you do not want to study. You can rebut the child. But you see, if on the other hand, you empathize with the child and try to listen to the child and try to find out, say, okay, let me go and talk to your teacher and find out, that relationship will be different. On the other hand, if you just reject and you rebut, relationship becomes sour. And you will not have the same attachment and the feelings with the person because you completely has shut the door of your feelings. Effective listening increases your social acceptance and popularity because people tend to like those who are attentive and supportive. When you socialize with your friends, when you listen to them, when you empathize with them, people come to you. There's a by word of mouth, a message is spread. This person listens. This person doesn't immediately react. This person is not judgmental. So, it is essential that if you want social acceptability, be an effective listener. Effective listening increases your knowledge of others, the world, and yourself, because you will profit from the insights, experiences, and perceptions of others. Supposing I go and listen to a person who's talking on a new country I've never visited. He's talking about his travelogue, about his writings, which he or she has recently produced after visiting a country, say, for example, Brazil. I've never visited that country, but interacting with that person, I'll get to know. I'll increase my knowledge. And that's how I expand my horizons. I may not be interested, but yet, by listening to that person effectively, by appreciating his visits, his observations, I increase my knowledge. I broaden my experiences. Remember that when we interact with people older than our age, people who are widely traveled, people who are more literate, we can gain that experience which otherwise is not possible. So it's a very good shortcut that you, by interacting with people, you listen to them effectively, gain knowledge. But this you can only do if you are an effective listener. Listen even if that subject doesn't interest you. Listen even if that contradicts your beliefs, your values. But listening will add to your knowledge. That is how you can expand your mental horizons. Effective listening increases your ability to avoid problems and difficulties, because you will hear and respond before problems develop or escalate. I often come across students who complain to me about their ability to gain more knowledge. They complain to me about the bad grades they are getting. So when I listen to them, I don't immediately say, hey, you can never improve. Rather, I say, well, let me find out if there is some fault in me, or whether the curriculum needs to be revised, or how can I facilitate so that they could improve upon their grades. The fault could be with me too, or the fault could be in the admission process. So that's how I become an effective listener and try to assess the situation. Effective listening increases your power and influence because people respect and follow those who listen to them and understand them. If you're working in a factory and you negotiate with your subordinates in a very cordial, in a very helpful environment, they will appreciate you. Whenever they will have a problem, they'll come to you. They will listen to you. You can ask them. You can order them. They'll obey you because you have increased your influence. This is only if you're an effective listener, if you listen to people's problems. Effective listening increases your ability to make more reasoned and more reasonable decisions because you will acquire more information relevant to decisions you'll make. Let me give you an example of a marketing department which has failed to market a certain product. They made several attempts, but somehow could not market the product. Would you straight away reject the team for being unable to market that product? No. Maybe the fault is in the product. Maybe the fault is in the policy of advertisement. Maybe there's something wrong somewhere else, not in the team. If the team requires more skills, more training, you can only know if you listen to them what are the problems. So straight away rejecting a notion and passing judgments will not solve problems. That is why it is important that whenever you encounter such things, listen to the people, listen to them, and try to find out what in reality needs to be addressed. And this you can only do if you enter into the frame of reference of those who have come to discuss the problem, come to discuss the issues. So therefore, in a nutshell, the whole outcome of today's lecture, I would say that look into these things and try to practice, because to be an effective listener, you will need to look from different angles, from different aspects, and not be judgmental, not be critical, but on different levels of listening, listening to the words and listening to the hidden, unsaid messages. I'm sure you must have enjoyed my today's lecture. This is going to help you in your personal life too, as I elucidated by an example of a friend, because in your professional and personal life too, you will come across lots of such examples where you will have to adopt this listening ability. Thank you very much, and we'll continue on with our communication lessons in future. Khuda Hafiz.